Good day and welcome to 25 PowerPoint 2019 tips in 20 minutes. We are going to rip through this fast and we're going to have some fun, and hopefully you know about maybe a third of these and 2/3 of them you don't know. Let's get to it. This applies to the retail versions of PowerPoint that you would purchase at a store, and also the much more common now Office 365 versions. So let's get started. The first thing we want to show you is PowerPoint's, well, this isn't PowerPoint, just generic Office setting here. The Format Painter. Now you think you already know the Format Painter, so nothing new here, but there is. So if you highlight, you've got some formatting here, and you decide, you're going to make some changes to it. So let's make it really interesting. We'll do underline and bold and whatever else, right? So a whole bunch of stuff here, and probably know how Format Painter works. You basically click anywhere in an area that you would like to copy the format from. You click on it, and then you just paint it. And it will apply the settings to the text that you've selected. What you probably don't know is you can double click on Format Painter. So let's go back to here again and select Format Painter, but this time we'll double click and you'll notice it stays gray. And now I can reuse this over and over and over again, which is really freaking handy. Control plus drag to duplicate. So let's just take a look at that. So say you've got this graphic and you want to make another copy of it somewhere on here. Well, you can do what most people do, which is just copy and paste it, or you can hold the control key with your finger and just drag it. And wherever you drop it, it will be duplicated. You can keep doing that. Another thing is to use shift and drag. And what that will let you do, well, it's more of what it won't let you do. It'll actually block you from moving graphics diagonally. So right now I can pick up this graphic and I can move it around anywhere I want. And that works just fine, except if you're trying to line things up, it's kind of a pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the shift key on the keyboard, and then you'll see I can't move diagonal. I can only move horizontal and vertical. And that is very handy for trying to lay things out. All right, let's show you how to merge content. This is a pretty common problem. You've got content from 20 other PowerPoints you've done, and you need to bring them into a current PowerPoint. And the problem with that is the formatting's all wrong. So let's open one up here. I'm going to go to File and Open, and I'm going to open up a little caddy thing that I produced a little while ago. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take so I'm going to grab all of these slides, and I'm going to right click and select copy. Then I'm going to go back to my caddy test here, and I'm going to right click. Let's put them here, and we'll just paste them in. And then you could right click on the slide and select layout and choose a layout that's similar to one of your other ones. So let's go through here, and I'm going to choose, well, just for fun, I'll choose this one, just to make it a little different. So let's show you how to make Excel really shine in PowerPoint. So I'm just going to right click and select new slide, just to do something basic. And I'm going to select insert, and just to be quick, I'm going to select table. I'm going to take their default table, but you can paste this in from Excel. You can modify, you can do whatever you want to it. It doesn't have to be the default that's provided. Again, we're just doing this to make it fast. So we've all seen this, right? You go into PowerPoint and you can change the backgrounds and all that stuff, and that's wonderful. But I'm not going to show you that. That's not the interesting part. Here's the interesting part. And now I can go into animations, and I can choose. Let's choose fly in. So you saw at that point the whole thing flew in, but I don't want the whole thing to fly in. I'm going to select again the first in the series, and I'm going to select effect options, and I want it to fly in by series. Look at that. That's pretty cool. Or I can right click, I can select by category. Now that's pretty neat. So let's just show you what that would actually look like in a presentation. So I'll go to the presentation, and I'll swap these around again. And there's my table, and I'd like to indicate that in category 1, you'll see that, we had a pretty good year. We had a pretty good time in here, but really, category 2 indicates that things were moving along a little bit better, especially in the darker color in the middle, and blah, blah, blah. You can see that this is actually working with me as I click through it. It's wonderful. Okay, so header and footer. This is something that always seems to confuse people. You can see here that this brought in a footer from the previous presentation. This slide doesn't have any header or footer. This one has a different one altogether. This one has none. And if you're trying to get them to be even and consistent, it can be quite a pain. So what you typically want to do is just sort of double click, except when you're in PowerPoint, that doesn't do anything. So what you have to do is go to Insert and Header Footer. And in the Insert Header Footer, you can go, there's a couple of things that are interesting. One, well, we'll put the date and time because why not? We'll put the slide number and we'll put, copyright urtech.ca, but you can put anything you want. And here's the key, select Apply to All. There we go. And now this is consistent through all of the slides. And you can see that it's done white here versus, black here. Insert icons. This is something that a lot of people just are not using, and it's really good. So typically you're going to be on your Home tab. Let's go over to the Insert tab, and we'll choose icons. Now, icons were added, a couple of years ago, but very few people use them. And there's a couple of advantages. So let's just select one for fun. Let's choose this one just for fun. Now, one of the advantages to these icons is that they scale beautifully. They're very, very crisp. But so you might have thought that, well, I could have figured that out. It's not that interesting. What you probably didn't know is you can break these apart. So let's right click on this and select Group, Ungroup. And I can say, yes, I want to ungroup it. And I can say, you know what? I don't want that bar there. I don't want it. And this bar, I want to move over here for some reason. Okay, we can also go to Insert and Shapes. And Shapes, you think, well, okay, I probably know how to do this, but you might not. There's a couple of interesting things here. So let's show you some shortcuts here. So let's just for fun choose this one. And we'll just grab this shape and put it in. Now what you probably knew is you can resize it, and that's not that interesting. But you can also right click on it and select Edit Points. And when you can edit points, look what happens. You can do things like that. So you can move these around, just right click, and you can make all kinds of interesting things. Insert SmartArt, another very useful thing that is underutilized but really shouldn't be. Let's bring up a new slide. So I'll just select New Slide, nice and plain. And here I'm going to select Insert and then SmartArt. And SmartArt you might know already about, but there's a few things you may not be familiar with. So let's go into, let's pick this one for fun. It's one I haven't used before. So SmartArt, what it is a dynamically expanding or contracting graphic. And so let's go into here and I can type this and it will just keep adding things. So I can go into here and I can say, well, no, that should have been, I'll press the tab key and slide it over, press the tab key and slide that over, and I'll put 3 on this, and then, a bunch of 4s. And you think, okay, well, that's kind of neat, except I probably already knew that, not that interesting here. Now, what you might not know is you can grab any one of these elements and you can just move it around. Another thing you can do is you can double click on the SmartArt and it will go to the SmartArt tools, and you can make a lot of really quick and easy changes to this. With very little skill, you can do something really professional and interesting. So SmartArt is a very underutilized, very awesome little tool. So let's go in, we'll choose this one just for fun. And I'll say, yeah, except I don't want it to be blue. Okay, so don't make it blue. Choose the green. Choose something else. And you can go in and customize this further, but you get the idea. Insert 3D models. Now this is relatively new. This has only been out for, a couple of years now. And if you had Office 2016 retail package, you didn't have this. You had to have the Office 365 version. Let's take a look. If I select Insert and 3D Models, and you'll think, geez, it can't be that interesting. Believe me, it's pretty cool. So I'm just going to, we'll leave this on the screen for fun. I'll shrink this down. Let's put airplane. So now let's take a look, and I'm going to select Insert, and I'll go to 3D Models, and it will default out to the web. Here, and I'll select plane. I have to spell it right though. Select plane, and then look at this. I can take this plane and I can rotate it. I can move it around, but take a look at this. I can use 2 of our little tips together. So I'm going to take this slide and I am going to right click on it and duplicate it, which is another tip. A lot of people don't seem to know how to do that. They copy the slide and then paste it. Just duplicate, right click, duplicate. Now take a look at this. I can take this plane, I can move it down to here, and I can say I want it to be way larger, and I want it to be pointing down. So I want it to be like that now. Actually, that's probably too big, so let's do this, okay? So there we go, right? Now, take a look at this awesome transition called Morph that very few people use. So you'll find if you're doing professional presentations, which I do a lot of, and I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this that do too, that there are an awful lot of people that do too much in the way of transitions. It's just, it really gets in the way of the show. This one's neat. So let's take a look. So I'm going to select this second slide, and I'm going to select Morph, and well, you can see what it just did, the preview. Let's just take a look. So I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to launch the presentation. And okay, I'll switch this around so you can see it better. And I'll click on it. Look at that. That's pretty damn cool. So I'll get out of that. So 3D models, again, really, really nice. And if you have your own models, that's great. You can insert, where are we here? 3D models from File. And you can see here that here are the different formats that are common. I've only ever used STL files. The stereolithography format, but and they work great, but I'm quite confident all of these work as well. Let's go find a graphic and we'll just insert it. Pictures, we'll insert some of mine. Okay, so there's a picture. It's not that large, about 1.5 MB, but let's just save this file, which we'll do. And let's take a look at how large it is. So now this document is 10 meg in size, okay? Now, okay, so a lot of people will think if you simply make the graphic smaller, physically smaller, it will actually reduce the file size, but it doesn't. So let's take a look, and it's still 10.5 meg. Another thing people think wrongly is if you take a graphic and you crop it, you'll make the file smaller, but it won't. So if you double click on it, you can select crop up in the top here. You can make this smaller. Let's say we just want, for some reason we just want that, right? We just want the palm trees. There we go. And crop. And now we save the file, and it will be exactly the same size, and it is. And if you double click on the graphic again and go to crop, you can see that actually that's because all of the content is still there. So there's really two things you want to do if you want to reduce the size of a PowerPoint, especially if you've played with the graphics by adjusting and cropping. So let's go through here. The first thing you could do is double click on any picture, and under Picture Tools format, there will be compressed pictures. And in here, you'll have the choice to say, I would like this to be 96 dots per inch, which is typical for the screen, by the way, or I'd like it to be a higher quality graphic. So this graphic is actually, I think, 600 DPI, and let's set this to 96, which is pretty standard quality, so I'll click on that. The other thing, the second thing right here is apply to this picture, apply only this picture. No, I want it applied to all of the pictures, and I also want to delete the cropped areas. So I'm going to turn that off for a second. So we'll just change the size. There we go. And then we'll save this file, and let's take a look how big it is. And now it's 5 meg. Pretty cool, right? Now let's go crop this out. I'll double click on this file, and you can see that the content is still there. And I will now go to compress pictures again, and I will select delete the cropped areas, and okay. And so how large is that? That is 5217. And I don't expect this to be a lot smaller, but yeah, there we go. It's a little bit smaller. Okay, so getting rid of those cropped areas, very big deal, and compressing, very big deal. And this gets us to inspect document. Now, inspect document will look for any personal data that's in the file, who created it, footer notes, comments, things like that. But it will also make the graphic smaller if you ask it to. So let's go through and I'll show you what I mean. So right now, this file is 4.9 meg. We're going to call it 5 meg, right? So I'm going to undo this now so that it's back the way it was. And bingo. And now I'll save it, and that will change it back to about 10. There we go. It's about 10 meg. Now, if I go to File, and I go to Check for Issues, and I select Inspect Document, this is really the one you want to pay most of the attention to, Document Properties and Personal Information. So let's click on Inspect, and it's going to say, hey, you know what? We can strip out author data. We can make the we can crop the pictures. Anything that's been cropped, we can get rid of that information, and we can get rid of any other data that may be buried, like comments. And I will select Remove All. Here we go. There we go, and I'll select Close. We'll go back here. We'll force a save, and we'll see how much smaller it is. Probably not a lot, just a little bit. In Inspect, we'll again strip out comments and other things. Very, very helpful thing to do. Okay, now, trying to lay these out. I can do this by hand. It's not a crisis to do, but it's way easier if I simply select all of the graphics. In this case, I just dragged over top of them. And then in Picture Tools, I will have a line, and I can do what you probably already know, align center. It's kind of handy. What you may not know is distribute horizontally and vertically. So these are not spaced very well, right? So if I go to distribute vertically, it separates them. It sets a nice even space distance between them. Color matching is our next thing. So if I want to choose let's expand this graphic, and we'll choose a color from the background. Let's choose, I need that red for some reason to be in this box here. So what I can do, I can right click on it and I can select Format Shape. And in here I've got Fill, as you might expect. Now any drop down that has colors in it, so any place you can choose colors. So this is for fonts, this is for pictures, this is for anything where you can choose a color. There'll be an eyedropper, very overlooked feature. So click on Eyedropper, and I'm going to select that red right there. And look, it just changed it. I can go back here and I can go to Eyedropper again, and I can say, well, I actually want it to be that red instead. And again, awesome little feature. Layers. So layers are something that people think they have a handle on, but there's a little feature that you might find interesting. So let's stack all of these graphics up. So there's a whole bunch of these, and it gets a bit confusing as to what is where. And what you probably do is what I used to do, which is send backward. And eventually send backward. See, so this is underneath that. Let's go send backward again. Okay, so it's a bit of a cluster trying to figure out which one's where and how it all works, but you can select Arrange and down to the selection pane. And look at that, there they all are. There's all the different items that are on the slide, and I can just move these around. I can just drag them as I wish. I can also double click on them and name them if I want. So, Caddy 1. Screen recording, also a feature that is just very underutilized. So let's say you need to steal a YouTube video. There's a lot of ways to grab content, but it's built into PowerPoint. It's very helpful. So let's just go to youtube.com. And what we want to do is choose the Men in Black trailer. For some reason, we want to tie that into our presentation. So what I can do is I can go to Insert, and I can go to Screen Recording, and I can say I want to record. Well, you have to select the area, and let's say I want to, for the sake of the argument, I'm going to take something, make this really ugly. I'm going to choose that is what I want. So let's click Record. Wait for it to count down, and watch.
Like you don't know how to use a button.
Oh God, could you zap me with that forgetting thing, please? Fun is slow. Hey, man.
There we go. And just go back to the top and select Stop. And now I'm going to get rid of this because I don't want it. And now this is actually in the presentation. Okay, so I can go in and I can trim the video and say I don't want that stuff at the start. That was a mess. That was just me goofing around getting set up. And I don't need the stuff at the end. That's all I want. So I'll click OK. And bingo, it's edited. And I can even double click on this and I can shrink it. I can go to crop. And I can get rid of that extra garbage that I had. Isn't that handy? So if I do this, you wouldn't even know it came from YouTube. Now, this doesn't have to be a video. This could be anything at all that you wanted to record. If you had an animation on your screen or anything else. Isn't that great? Presentation tips. This is super, super helpful and almost nobody knows about it. You don't have to remember all of the instructions here. Just remember F1. So press the F1 key on your keyboard and look what comes up. This awesome little menu. So this is what you have to remember, F1, and then click on the ink and laser. So let's go through the ones you care about most, which are going to be Control P for pointer. With my mouse, I can just click on here and write things. I can do Control I, which is, they call it inking, but it's really highlighting. Okay, another one, let's go to the next slide, is Zoom. I can press the plus key on the keyboard, and it will zoom in, and I can press the minus, and once I get to a certain point, it will take me back so I can see all of the slides. And I can click plus, and I can click minus. And that's just me pressing it on the keyboard. And the last thing we're going to show you is Save As Movie. And you think, geez, I know about this. I got to go through and do all the timings. It's a pain. No, you don't. You can click File, and you can go to Export. Now you can go to Save As, and you can select MP4 or you can now go to export, and this has been around for a couple of generations now, but this is really handy. So let's go to create a video, and we'll leave it at high quality, and we'll say, look, I don't want to do any of the timing. It's a pain. So let's spend 5 seconds on each slide. Now, for the sake of argument, I'm going to change to 2, just so that we, when I show it to you, it's faster. So let's click create video, and sure, we'll call it caddy test. Doesn't make any difference. And you'll notice at the bottom here, it's actually building the file, but I don't have to wait. I can keep working as it's going. The file is finished. Let's go to downloads, and there it is. And you can see it's running through the PowerPoint. Looks great. All right, that's it. If you have any questions, please get a hold of us at www.urtech.ca. Thank you. Bye-bye.